Hello everyone, my name is Wendy Ivy Martinez and I am a geek, and today we are going to be doing my August reading wrap-up. Woo! We're going to be starting from the lowest ranking to the highest. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so this month I read a total of 10 books. So let's go ahead and get started with the lowest rating up till the highest rating. I'm gonna start with my DNF. I had one DNF this month, one book that I just could not get through. I just couldn't do it. It was actually the book that was chosen for my read it or unhaul it. And it looks like I'll be unhauling it because I couldn't get through it. And that is Final Girls by Riley Sager. Now, I have read one other book by Riley Sager. It is Home Before Dark, and I loved it so much. This one, on the other hand, I just couldn't stand it. I don't know if it's because I did my Grady Hendrix vlog this month, so I was reading so many Grady Hendrix books, and I was reading so many characters that were just downright annoying because Grady Hendrix tends to kind of have that trope in his books where he has a lot of characters that are very, very annoying, and then over the course of the book they get redeeming qualities. So when I got to this book, I just couldn't handle any more annoying characters. I couldn't handle any more annoying side characters, and I just couldn't do it. So I DNF'd it after 120 pages. If it had been any other time, I probably could have gotten past how ignorant our main character is and then how annoying the side character is, and you know that she's annoying and a bad character and the main character doesn't see. I just couldn't get past that aspect. But this is basically about our main character. I even forgot her name. Her name is Quincy. So our main character, Quincy, she is a final girl. She ended up being the final girl of this particular serial killer amongst her group of friends, and there are two other girls that had the same sort of fate where the killer killed everybody else except for that main final girl. And she finally comes face to face with Sam, who is another final girl after a recent passing of the other last final girl. So there's originally 3 final girls, and then one girl ends up unaliving herself supposedly, and then we're down to 2 final girls, and then the second final girl, the side character, she ends up meeting with our main character, and then the two sort of try to stick together, so because they're the last 2 final girls. And it's just, I couldn't stand the characters. I'm so sorry. I couldn't stand our main character. I did not care for her at all. And Sam, the other final girl, I just couldn't get past that. So I DNF'd it. So that is my DNF for this month. So now we're on to my 2-star reads. The first book that I'm going to mention is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This was in my Grady Hendrix vlog, so I'm not going to do too much talking about why I rated it this much, but I had originally rated it 3 out of 5 stars, but the more and more I think about it, the more and more I just remember the parts that I didn't like about it, so I am bumping it down to 2 stars instead of 3. There was parts in this book that were just downright boring. It's about a very southern book club, and this is back in the 80s, so this is when the women were stay-at-home wives, and they, according to their husbands, had nothing better to do, so they started a book club where they would just read true crime stories, and then a vampire comes to town, and children in the town go missing, but not their town, it's another town, and that's the part that was a bit of a misconnection because I thought it was like their town. It's a different town, and these women are determined to bring this vampire to justice, even though at first a lot of the characters don't know that he's a vampire except for our main character, Patricia. I do remember her name. This book was just boring. Now let's go ahead and move on to our 3-star books. So the first book, so just so you know, I'm ranking it the lowest from the lowest to the highest. So once I get to like my 5 stars, for example, the very last book that I show you is going to be my favorite, and then the one before that's going to be my second favorite of the month. Do you get what I mean? Going downwards. So this was my lowest 3-star rating this month, and that one goes out to Galatea by Madeline Miller. Like I said about infuriating characters, I had enough of it this month with Grady Hendrix. He wrote so many infuriating characters that I was at my cap, I was at my maximum. I could not handle any more annoying characters. So, surprise, surprise, Galatea, this story is basically about it's a Greek retelling of the man, I forgot what his name is, something with a P. Something with a P. Polygamous? This is a retelling of that original story with the guy that makes a statue, and then the statue comes to life, and they eventually live happily ever after like Venus or Aphrodite, whomever, brings her to life. But because Madeline Miller took a very feminist take on it, because this original tale basically just shows that women are just objects and they're just used there for, you know, adult things, and it's very much not like that. She took matters into her own hands with Galatea, and it had a lot of female rage. It was a very like feminist take on that original story, and I did appreciate that. That's why I ended up rating it 3 stars. However, like I said, I was at my max with infuriating characters, and her husband is a piece of garbage, and that the way that Galatea has to handle herself around this horrible man, I couldn't do it. I read so many books where the men acted like they were over the women this month because of Grady Hendrix, that I was at my maximum. I just can't do it anymore. I just couldn't do it anymore. So had it been another time, I may have rated this higher, but I did not like it this month. I mean, I did like it, but not as much as I feel like I would have if I had read it any other time. So 3 out of 5 stars. Okay, my next 3-star is We Sold Our Souls by Grady Hendrix. This one is, again, yet another infuriating character book where the men feel like they are superior and they deserve things, and the women don't. I had so much of this with this author. I had so much of this. This was not entirely what I expected. If you watch my vlog, I will go into detail, but this is basically about a woman. Her name is Chris, and she was a songwriter slash guitarist for a band, and they made this album called Chocolatite, I think is how you pronounce it, Chocolatite. And then the main guy in the band, the lead singer, ends up going big, and he ends up selling the rest of his band's souls to the devil. And now our main character, Chris, is trying to get her soul back because she has not been able to work on music, blah, blah, blah. She basically sold her soul for money. And that guy made it big and left everybody else in the dark. So that concept looked really interesting to me. I was expecting it to be very much like Tenacious D vibes, you know, like, but I didn't get that. Yay! So now we are moving on to our 4-star books of the month. The first one is going to be Horrorstor by Grady Hendrix. This one I am shocked because this one is probably one of Grady Hendrix's lowest rating novels. This one is basically about a haunted sort of IKEA store, and every single morning, or not every single morning, but often the employees walk into the store and the furniture is demolished, it's messed up. They don't know what is happening, and the store is losing so much money. So the manager decides to grab a few people to stay overnight and to find out what's really going on. And it turns out that it's haunted. And it was really good. Okay, it was really good. I enjoyed it. This is not a book that had a lot of like depth to it. You can't overthink it too much, because then it makes less and less sense. Among the other book that I'm going to show you by Grady Hendrix, but I did really enjoy this one. I ended up rating it 4 out of 5 stars. I really did like it. The next 4-star book that I have here is My Best Friend's Exorcism, also by Grady Hendrix. This one is about our main character, and I even forgot her name, Abby and Gretchen. So Abby is our main character, and she is in high school, and she has a best friend. Her best friend's name is Gretchen, and they've been best friends ever since they were little kids. And now in high school, they end up taking some LSD. And the night that they decide to take some LSD with some friends, Gretchen goes missing and she comes back different. And Abby starts to realize that she may be possessed by the devil or demons. And it becomes this whole thing. And Gretchen's demeanor completely changes. She goes from being this like really sweet person to a really horrible person who does really horrible things to each and every one of her friends and starts to ruin the lives of each and every single person around her, because it's not Gretchen, it's, you know, this thing. So that is this book. This one I enjoyed a lot more than the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. This one kept me entertained. I was not bored, not one single moment with this book. I did like the main character a lot. However, I noticed this one and the other book, the Southern Book Club's Guide, they have something in common where he likes to kill off dogs, and I do not appreciate killing off animals. If you kill off a dog, I just can't do it. I have a hard time with it. It's not a spoiler. It's not like a big thing that's in the story that completely changes the plot, but I just don't like reading about that. My last 4-star book that I'm going to mention is The Haunting of Ashburn House by Darcy Coates. I'm going to be doing a whole vlog for Darcy Coates coming up, so you might see this one on there again as well, but it's going to be spanning out a few months because she has so many books and I have other books that I want to read. Anyways, this book is about our main character, and her name is Adrienne, and Adrienne has had some trouble with her finances. She is not able to make ends meet, I guess. She's having a hard time making money. She goes bankrupt, and then her aunt that she didn't even know existed, gives her this house to inherit called Ashburn House. And this house, when she gets to this town, Adrienne finds that Ashburn House has a lot of rumors behind it. It's been rumored to be haunted. It's rumored to have a dark past. However, Adrienne doesn't know the woman that left her the house or the aunt that left her the house, and she has no idea why people suspect that this house is haunted and what the horrors that went on in this house to make it be haunted. And it's a horror novel, so we slowly start to see Adrienne as she discovers that yes, this house is haunted, and yes, this house does have a dark past. It was very creepy. It gave me eerie vibes. It really freaked me out at certain times, and in the end it was wrapped up so beautifully. It had a beautiful, amazing ending, and I loved how when it says it was horror and it said that this house is haunted, it really was haunted. It really did have supernatural elements, because the one thing that I do not like is when authors make a book about a haunted house and then it turns out that the house isn't haunted or there isn't hauntings going on, but it turns out to be something logical. No, don't give me logical stuff. Don't give me real people. I want to see ghosts, okay? And this had ghosts in it, and I loved it. I loved this book. This book was amazing. However, it did get slow from time to time, so that's why I didn't rate it 5 out of 5 stars, but I did like how it wrapped up, and it did give me it did like creep me out from here and there, so that's why it is 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I almost forgot to mention one more book in the 4-star section, and that is Sidetracked by St. Abbey. This is book 2 in the Mind Fuck series, and this is another one that I really did like. However, it wasn't as good as the first one, which was why it was 4 out of 5 stars. So this is about a serial killer whose name is Alana, and she basically goes after these men that did horrible things to her. So think Dexter. Like, she goes after people that deserve it, and she ends up falling in love with a cop. but not just any cop, a homicide detective who is also working on her case. So there's that, and it was really good. Like I said, this series I'm really enjoying. I just didn't like the second one as much as the first book. Okay, so my third favorite book of the month is Smashed by Junji Ito. So this is a manga, a collection of Junji Ito's stories. I loved this one a lot because it contained Soichi, and Soichi is a very famous character in Junji Ito's stories. He actually just got his own novel, and he is married to another character named Fuchi, who also is in another one of Junji Ito's short stories. But just them two, they're giant. It's just so, I loved it. I loved it so much. You guys do not know, Junji Ito writes a lot of horror manga. It's very disturbing. It's a lot of like body horror. It's a lot of gore. It's a lot of disgusting, disturbing things. And Junji Ito can take the most simplistic things and make it into a phobia. And I just love it. They're disturbing. A lot of his stories tend to not have happy endings. And sometimes you're in the mood for some darkness, and be prepared for very dark and disturbing things if you're going into a Junji Ito book. The next book was actually a Grady Hendrix book. This one was 5 out of 5 stars. It is called How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This one I ended up listening to it on audio because I was basically fixing up my house the whole day, so I finished it in one day and I was obsessed. This book scared me so bad. This book terrified me. It is, however, the title is a little bit misleading. So our main character, her parents pass away in a tragic accident, and she goes to her mother's house to clean everything out. And her mom used to collect puppets, and because she used to do puppets for like her local church, and she used to have like puppet shows and things like that. And so her mom was obsessed with puppets, and specifically there is a puppet called Pumpkin that the mom always had ever since she was a little girl, and I guess it was her mom's puppet from when she was little. And Pumpkin is haunted, and he is, think of, this is literally like Night of the Living Dummy, I think it's called, the R.L. Stine, but for adults. Or like Annabelle. I got like Annabelle vibes. I got Night of the Living Dummy. I think that's what it was called by R.L. Stine. It is probably one of my favorite reads so far this year. So with this one, Grady Hendrix actually did really good, even though we did have infuriating characters. They did have redeemable qualities, and we understand why they were so misunderstood in this one. And then last but certainly not least, this is my top #1 favorite book of August. And not only August, but I have to say I think it's my third favorite book of so far of 2023 this year, and that is Fantasticland by Mike Bockoven. I loved this book. This was my second read in August, and I was obsessed. I loved this book so much. First of all, this book is about a hurricane that happens in Florida. A hurricane that people weren't expecting to be as bad as it was. And I read this like a couple weeks prior to when we had a hurricane / tropical storm here in Southern California. So when I heard the tropical storm warning, I was terrified because of what happened in this book. But this book is about a theme park called Fantasticland, and a hurricane is basically about to hit this Fantasticland, and the people that are in charge of this theme park are like, well, we want to make sure that when the hurricane passes that looters don't mess up this theme park, so we're going to keep a whole bunch of employees at Fantasticland to protect the park. They told these employees, if you stay, you're going to get pay, and that includes overnight, and all you have to do is basically just chillax and wait for the hurricane to pass and then for us to rescue you. Maximum they expected it to take were just a couple of days. And these kids ended up being there for over a month. Most of these kids were straight out of high school, probably 18 years old at most, and then they end up separating into different groups. You had all the employees that worked in one part of the park, worked like trooped together. You had different areas and different groups, and these groups basically became like gangs. You were either a part of the pirates, you were a part of the shop girls, blah blah blah. And horrendous things start to happen. They end up starting to kill each other for no reason other than sheer boredom. And it's crazy. It's gory, it's bloody, it's so dark. This book is so dark. So dark to the point where you just cannot take your eyes off of it. So dark to the point where you just can't get enough. It's that sort of darkness that you just can't get enough of. Like, think Squid Game, think American Horror Story, where it's dark and disturbing and gory and you just cannot get enough of it. And it is told in a series of interviews. So you not only see what happens in this park little by little, and little by little it starts to unravel, but you get to get into the minds of each and every single one of these characters, and they're all so vastly different. You get like the people that were just trying to help, and then you get the dark and disturbing people that were committing these horrible crimes just for the fun of it. And it was so amazing. Anyways, you guys, that is it. That is everything that I read in the month of August. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't yet, please check out my TBR, where I let my tarot cards pick my TBR for the month. And yes, so thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!